Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Ronaldo's late winner to get Portugal past Scotland. We'll discuss the USMNT falling to Canada 2-1. We'll discuss Rodrigo saying Brazil needs Neymar to win the 2026 World Cup. We'll discuss Chelsea's ownership drama unfolding. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my reactions to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. If you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show great, and we thrive on your energy and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion, or you just have to share, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easier way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $sign at the bottom of the chat box, send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So get ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit that super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off though with Cristiano Ronaldo scoring once again for Portugal. This is now his 901th official goal, and scoring for Portugal to get that victory over Scotland. He came off the bench and do it. They were down 1-0 early to Scotland. Scott McTominay was able to get them the lead. Scotland sort of playing in not desperation for this game, but was a need to get a result in this. Their opening day disappointing lost at Hampden Park to Poland. They lost to them 3-2. So in the Nations League, having playing 6 games, every game is vital, and after starting off already with the loss at home, you need to get some sort of result. And they were in it till the end, but then Cristiano Ronaldo was able, Bruno Fernandes equalized, and then Cristiano Ronaldo was able to struck that late winner, tap it into an empty net, and from a goal down, they go on to beat Scotland 2-1, and they continue their good start so far to the Nations League. You remember we talked about this when Ronaldo scored his 900th goal. We didn't discuss much about the game, but it came in a 2-1 win for Portugal. They were able to get that win over Croatia in a game that for periods they did struggle against Croatia, and Croatia did play really well. We know Croatia with Zlatko Dalic are now going with a different approach with the back three, which sort of fits Sutalo, Guardiola, and the caliber of players that Croatia have. They went on to use that same sort of formation as they defeated Poland 1-0, and they actually played really well in that game as well. But going back to Portugal, they came off they've had a strong start so far. Bruno Fernandes, I talked about how he was able to fire in the equalizer. Ronaldo also. Scotland, they were kind of hanging on there at the end. But Bruno Fernandes, he played his 600th career game, said, speaking about Ronaldo, said the influence is always the same regardless of whether he starts on the bench or not. Everyone who came on made the difference. Cristiano has a goal. Today he scored 901, and now he's on his way to 1,000, which is what he wants. Portugal, they lead Group A now with 6 points. And Scotland, We discussed about them having two losses. Both came to late goals, which is really a frustrating sort of international window. Losing two games with late goals, frustrating for Steve Clark and the boys. Portugal, Angus Gunn, he made a lot of saves, and the one that he saved, the Rafael Leao's low sort of strike, was an amazing save. And Portugal, they had 15 attempts at halftime, but Scotland, they were able to dig deep in there and sort of defend for their lives. And Angus Gunn made a lot of saves. Eventually, though, he was beaten as the play gets pulled back to Fernandez, who hits a well-timed shot. But to be honest, Angus Gunn made a lot of good saves, but that one could have probably been saved. And then Portugal, um, they had their opportunities. Gunn made a lot of good saves, Angus Gunn, but eventually Ronaldo. And Ronaldo actually had another opportunity where he headed and it hit the post. Um, and then Ronaldo eventually got the tap in with a great delivery by Nuno Mendes. And Steve Clark, when discussing it, said Steve Clark, Scotland manager, obviously disappointed. I looked for a long period that we get something from the game. The effort and the quality the players put in, they deserve to get something. Uh, yeah, look, the game itself, you know, you know, everything that I said up to this point kind of speaks for itself. The game, Scotland hanging on, just couldn't hang on to the end. Ronaldo getting that goal. Uh, Look, Cristiano Ronaldo is a great player. Cristiano Ronaldo has been a great player, has had a great career. 901 goals is not something to be understated. Um, and last segment I tried to, I made it mostly completely positive regarding Ronaldo because, well, it's needed to celebrate this sort of accomplishment. It is an amazing achievement getting 900 official goals, now at 901, and can at this age still being able to score winners for your country. It says a lot. But we've seen the story before. We've seen the story before with Cristiano Ronaldo. In the lead up to this European Championships in this past summer, in the qualifiers, Ronaldo in the European qualifiers in the lead up, Ronaldo was the leading scorer for Portugal. Ronaldo, I believe, I don't have the exact statistics. I'll pull it up there. But Ronaldo had a really good run in the qualifiers, in the Nations League, in the lead up for up to that European Championship. And then, yeah, it's I thought originally I thought it was 10, but I wasn't for sure. I just searched it up. It is. He scored 10 times in the 9 qualifiers that he played in. He scored 10 times. So he had a great lead up. He had a great production in the European qualifiers leading up to that European Championship. And then we arrive at the European Championship and he doesn't score. He doesn't get any goals. He's barely involved in play throughout the duration of the tournament. He was barely involved in play in general, in terms of general play. Didn't have enough opportunities created for him. Didn't really take advantage of the few opportunities created for him, and really struggled to, put a foot in the game and to really be part of the game. He just didn't get enough chances. He wasn't mobile enough. Didn't move around enough. Was limited to being a box striker, and just not what we expect of Cristiano Ronaldo. And just like the same story, in these sort of Nations League qualifier games, going up against in less intense moments. Because let's be for real, let's be 100%. The Nations League Euro qualifiers, even Scotland is a team that qualified for the European Championship. This is a sort of, a decent caliber game. But the intensity that teams play in these sort of games compared to a major international tournament is two completely different things. Getting a goal in the Nations League, playing decent in the Nations League and playing, for your country at an international tournament, leading the line, being the man is totally different. And for me, Cristiano Ronaldo is not capable of being that sort of guy at that level at a major tournament for Portugal. Not anymore. It's been proven over and over again. The last two major international tournaments that Cristiano Ronaldo has played in, the last two, going back to the 2022 World Cup and these past European Championships, he didn't score a single goal from open play. Not a single goal for open play, and he was the routine sort of low number 9 for Portugal, game in and game out in those two tournaments. He did later on in that World Cup, in the round of 16, get benched, and then got benched, and then in the Morocco, the quarterfinal, only played the second half, but got to play the duration of that group stages, got to play this entire European Championship, minute in, minute out, was always on the pitch, besides a 35-minute period in the last group stage game where he got subbed off in a game that didn't matter against Georgia. He got to play game in, game out, and not only he didn't get any goals, and not getting any goals is okay. That's not the thing I'm more, because sometimes you just get unlucky. You can hit the post a few times. The keeper can make a few great saves, Sometimes the opportunities are just not created for you. The goals thing is not necessarily the problem. That is part of it. As a number 9, you are expected to score goals. But the biggest thing is he's barely involved in play. He's not pressing from front, which is okay. He's older and all that. But on top of that, you don't really get the, runs in behind the way he used to. He doesn't get involved in general play. He sort of tries to find little pocket of spaces between the center halves to, be able to get a header off. Doesn't really, doesn't really have the movements that he has of the past. Can't really get on the ball and attack the defender with pace the way he used to. He's just not the same player, and he's been resulted to a box striker that's just not, in the right areas at the right time. Just can't get his foot into the game. And you watch Portugal games, and you almost forget that Cristiano Ronaldo is playing, and now with the next World Cup coming, he's only going to get older. He's going to be 41 at that World Cup. Right now, the past two international tournaments has not been involved enough, hasn't been himself in the major tournaments for Portugal. Now, with that World Cup coming up, he's only going to get worse from here. He's 39 years old. He's going on to 41 for that World Cup. He's only going to get worse from there. Then on top of that, with the sort of personality he has, and the character, he's not someone that's willing to come off the bench. That's not his persona. That's not what he wants to do. You saw, there was some issues, at the last World Cup, that was reported. We saw the way how he sort of, his reaction to getting subbed off to Georgia in a meaningless game in that last group stage game, getting subbed out in the 64th, 65th minute by Roberto Martinez. We see it in the comments that he makes on how he's confident that he is still able to lead the line in Portugal. So, look, it's good that he's able to get the winner over Scotland and all that, but the story remains the same with Cristiano Ronaldo on Portugal. It's a page that needs to be closed, and there's two things that need to happen. Either he just needs, he just needs to realize the story is done, or he needs to be willing to accept a more limited role on Portugal, because I don't think he's a player that's garbage or anything. No, far from that. But it's the fact that he's not willing to accept a limited role. That is the issue as well. That is a major, major issue. And that is why, for me and for a lot of people that are looking at this from an objective point of view, the only real solution here is for them to close the chapter on this story of Cristiano Ronaldo's time at Portugal. But thank you guys for sort of listening to my diatribe. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the USMNT falling to Canada 2-1.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Ronaldo's late winner to get past Scotland. We move on to react to the USMNT falling to Canada 2-1. It should have been or could have been 4 or 5. Really a disgusting game for the USMNT. And the only reason why this was not extreme, or it was embarrassing, but the only reason why it wasn't extremely embarrassing and very disgusting and it was all these things still, but the only reason why I'm not going overly crazy on this performance is, well, first of all, it is a friendly, and to be honest, this mattered a whole lot more to Canada than the US. It was clear from what we saw on the field. It was clear from what we see on the way Jesse Marsh has talked about, some of the comments he has made. And it's clear, and it's also, US has an interim manager, and there's a hiring that's been looming for a very, very long time now. But there's been looming for a very, very long time now, and I don't know why it's taken so long, but it's still clear that that hire is gonna happen with Pochettino coming in, and we'll get to that later. But as far as this game, so the US were able to control the ball, have 58% possession. But I'm talking about some of the most useless possession you'll ever see watching a football game. The possession were in areas not dangerous on the pitch, no real liveliness. In terms of, they had possession of the ball, but no control of the game. Had so many mistakes that led to immediate Canadian opportunities. A lot of mistakes playing out of the back. a lot of mistakes in midfield. Johnny Cardoso making one that led to a goal. Tim Ream giving away a ball playing out of the back as well. In general, that back line couldn't really play out. And a really disgusting performance from the USMNT. The stadium, also empty seats, which is not surprising because the US stadiums are, barely half capacity in a major international tournament this summer, a home international tournament, the Copa America. So playing a friendly, I'm not surprised at all that it was that empty. Not surprised at all. That's also disgusting too. And that's something that needs to change also. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't think it's the fact that there's not enough U.S. men's national team fans. Don't think that it is, and don't think that excuse could be used for U.S. soccer. Ticket pricing out the pricing out the fan that's probably it. I don't have much knowledge on why it's so bad in terms of, these stadiums being practically empty, but that's something that the US Soccer Federation needs to address, because again, that was disgusting. But the US men's national team, this is the first home loss that they've suffered to Canada in 67 years. I believe in the Nations League and so we lost to them in the World Cup qualifiers when we went up to Canada. We also lost to them to Canada in the first edition of the Nations League. I believe this goes back to this goes back way back, like 20. I think this was a little bit before COVID, 2019, 2020, somewhere in that era. I think it was slightly before COVID. It was early Greg Berhalter. It was really our first look at this USMNT since that World Cup debacle in 2018, not being able to qualify, and but those games did not come at home. This is the first loss that the U.S. men's national team has suffered at home to Canada in 67 years, it was horrible. A lot of mistakes playing out of the back. And that's been, we saw that from the U.S., in the friendlies leading up to Copa America. It didn't really rear its ugly head at a Copa America, primarily because we were playing against weaker oppositions in the first two games. And then the game against Uruguay, we didn't really play out of the back or so. We kind of had a balanced approach to it. The Canada, they get. Can't speak right now. That's how disgusted I was with that game. I can't even speak. Canada were able to take the lead through Jacob Schaffelberg, who, doesn't have much quality in there. But he ran up and down, and he gave it all. I'll have to say also, the Canadian players outworked the American players. The American players didn't play with any sort of intensity, didn't play with any desperation. I think with Jesse Marsh and his desperation to sort of beat the U.S., sort of reflected on his players' attitude and dedication that they had, because they came into this game working really, really hard. Ali Ahmed, he got up and down that right-hand side as well. Schaffelberg as well. Kyle Larin did a lot of good work too. That defensively, Cornelius and Bombito, who actually made a big move, Moise Bombito to Nice. I thought they played pretty good as a partnership. And this Canada team is showing some signs going forward. Now, I don't think this Canada team is really there yet at the level of the Canadian team leading up to the 2022 World Cup, because that was a really, really good team, Canada, in that World Cup qualifying campaign that they had in the lead up to the 2022 World Cup. They played really, really well. They won the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying in terms of it wasn't the hexagonal, it's the octagonal. It got expanded, but they finished first. They played really, really well. They played really good in transition, and they had good moments where they could also control games and really, get people forward. Don't think they're quite at that level of that team quite yet, but they're building something. Compared to where they were about a year ago now, with the whole federation in major turmoil, with basically essentially being bankrupt, to now being able to bring in Jesse Marsh through help of the MLS teams in Canada, the Whitecaps and the Toronto FC, and now being able to build some sort of identity, have the run that they had at a Copa America, and now go on to move forward and to have this game sort of build something special leading up to 2026 World Cup. Well, they'll be one of the hosts. I think they're building something really, really good, and it was a quick turnaround for the Canadian Soccer Federation that they had. Can the U.S. Men's Federation have the same with this team? Because there's going to be a quick turnaround needed leading up to this 2026 World Cup to have progression. Now, they haven't been able to get it done yet technically by getting it pen to paper from what everyone reports, from all the sources within the organization. Mauricio Pochettino will come in and be the manager for the U.S. Men's National Team. So, can the U.S. Men's National Team now sort of, create this sort of, or Pochettino mostly, can he sort of create an identity within this team and turn it around? Now, we see at Chelsea that he, playing out of the back is, yes, important, but not everything to Mauricio Pochettino. Can he find some sort of a hybrid system to work with these set of players? That remains to be seen. And can the U.S. get it done? Can the U.S. get it done? Who knows? I hope so, because it's very, very important. Can they get a pen to paper? Can he come in? So for this next October window, he will be the manager. It remains to be seen. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to Rodrigo saying Brazil need Neymar to win the 2026 World Cup.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed the USMNT falling to Canada 2-1. We move on to react to Rodrigo saying Brazil need Neymar to win the World Cup in 2026. First of all, okay, no, let's not say that actually. Look, before I want to just qualify or maybe even disqualify my opinion on this topic. I am, since all my life, been a huge fan. My favorite team, my favorite national team, and yes, this is over my home country, the United States men's national team. My favorite national team, the team I root for, the team I'm a fan of, has been the Brazil national team. Probably I'd say out of every sports team that I root for across football, basketball, soccer, this is the one I have the most passion, most love, is most deeper rooted inside me. Slightly ahead of the San Francisco 49ers, who actually had a big W today on Monday Night Football. But going back to the main point, Brazil is something is always been a huge fan over. And second of all, Neymar Jr. has also been my favorite player, sports athlete ever. Across any sports, Neymar is my favorite athlete. So I just want to qualify or disqualify myself from this topic. But yes, Rodrigo said Brazil need Neymar fit to win the 2026 World Cup. Rodrigo said in an interview, in a ESPN Brazil interview, he's our star, our best player. Anyone can see it, how much he is missed. Having Neymar healthy, which is what we all want. And he is in the final stages of recovery. We want him back as soon as possible. Brazil, in the Colombo World Cup qualifiers, they started off with 2 wins and 1 loss. Then they went on to lose 3 consecutive matches to Uruguay, Colombia, and Argentina, and put them in a bad position of 6th place after 6 games. But now with this win that Brazil got over Ecuador on Friday, they're now 10th place and moved up to 4th place. They go on to take Paraguay on. They have to go to Paraguay, to Asunción on Tuesday to take on the Paraguayan national team, led by Julian Ciso and Miguel Almiron. But going back to Brazil, I don't need to go too far into this game. I just need to go to this Brazil-Ecuador game. Again, just really a lifeless performance from Brazil. They got the win, a sort of moment of magic early from Rodrigo. In the first half, they were pretty decent. Brazil showed some quality in that first half, were able to be good in that second half. Couldn't take the game by the scruff of the neck, couldn't take Ecuador, what's the word? Slammed the door shut on Ecuador, kept them in the game. I thought Ecuador had some good moments. I thought that second half was even between the two teams. And again, Brazil lacks that X factor. Brazil lacked that fear factor. And this Brazilian team is not to the level of a Brazilian national team that we grew up seeing. Not even, that my parents grew up seeing. Or to an extent, me grew up seeing. The teams that I saw in the 2018 and 2022 World Cups are way better than this Brazilian team, because at least those players had a lot of great players. How many great players does this Brazilian national team have that we saw take the field at this Copa America or in this game against Ecuador? You got Vinicius, who never shows up for Brazil, is nowhere near the caliber of player that he is for Real Madrid, for the Brazilian national team. And we saw that again at Ecuador when they took on Ecuador. Rodrigo, no, I'm not giving him great. I'm giving him really, really good. He's not great. He's not world class. Let me rephrase that. He's not world class. That's about it. Maybe a completely fit. Okay, Alisson. Sorry, Alisson is a world class player as well, but he's a goalkeeper. When we talk about Brazil, the goalkeeper shouldn't be the best. That's the crazy thing about this. The goalkeeper is the best player for Brazil. When has that been the case? And this is obviously excluding Neymar, who's out for injury. When has that been the case? Besides Alisson and Vinicius, that's about it for Brazil. In terms of great world-class sort of players. And there's a huge issue with this Brazilian national team. Huge issue. The quality is not there as it was before. It just flat out isn't. And they're lacking that sort of great world-class, top level player that we see of the Brazilian teams of the past. They have one who's injured right now in Neymar, which we don't know he'll be post this sort of ACL injury, this bad injury that he suffered being age 32. But we know, just based on what we've seen from his career, the pure quality, he's, when you talk about some of the players that Brazil has had, the crazy talent, Ronaldinho, the R9, Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, um, uh, Zico, Socrates, Pele, these sort of Kaká, these sort of players, the only player Brazil has now that fits in with those sort of legendary sort of players is Neymar. Who's kind of, who's in the later stages of the recovery from the injury. So if he is fit and firing and is, that sort of caliber player that he was before the injury, yes, absolutely, Brazil need him to win the World Cup because he is the only player. He's the only player of that caliber that can provide a little bit of flair to this team and that huge quality that this team is missing. That consistent sort of player that has the quality to beat a man, that can play in extreme type spaces, that can take the game by the scruff of the neck and completely take it over, like he did in that Copa America final against Argentina, in which they didn't lose. But you ask the Argentinian players, and Rodrigo, you ask him the best performance he's seen, he says Neymar in that game. That is, that's the only player that is that sort of level of caliber for this Brazil team. And will it be enough to put into this team to win the World Cup? It remains to be seen. I need to see a little bit more on how this team does develop under Dorival Jr. heading into that World Cup. But there's some major issues in the team. The fullbacks are not good enough. Arana, Danilo, Yankoto. These are not players that can create going forward. That are world-class sort of players at fullback. Defensively, Marquinhos is not been the same player. Gabriel, he's been a decent center half for Arsenal, but is he to that sort of level? No. Eder Militao, when he's fit and firing, yes, he could be the midfield-wise. Grimaris is a good piece. Paquetá, he's a clever and tidy player that has a little bit of creativity, but is he that sort of world-class number 10, like that can create, that's a brilliant midfielder? Is he a Kaká level player? No, he is not. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, can they show up for Brazil? Can they be what they are for Real Madrid, for Brazil? Specifically Vinicius Jr. And then Neymar can sort of fit into there if Neymar is back to firing at his best. And then, a hold that number that Brazil has had, basically all my life of watching Brazil, that number 9, that consistent goal scorer, going back. They've never, 2014, they had Fred up there that wasn't that sort of player. 2018, Gabriel Jesus didn't score a single goal at that World Cup. 2022, Richarlison, like he had a good game against Serbia at that World Cup, but he is not a world-class number 9. Number 9 has been an issue. Now they'll hope that by the time of the 2026 World Cup that Endrick can sort of be that sort of player. But again, he's only going to be 19 years old at that World Cup. Being heavily reliant on that sort of player at that age to get the goals consistently is not the biggest recipe, is not the best recipe for success for this Brazilian national team. So yeah, I think yes, Neymar is definitely needed for Brazil to win this World Cup because they lack that world-class sort of player. But again, the fit is also important. Sometimes Brazil, when Neymar is playing for Brazil, everything goes through him instead of Neymar being a part of the Brazilian attack. It almost is that Neymar is the Brazilian attack, and sometimes it's he has to be the Brazil attack because he just is the what they have, the best that they have, and sometimes the only thing that they have going forward because of how the pressure gets to the other players. But if Dorival Jr. can set up this sort of attack, which Neymar is part of a brilliant front three and not is the front three, I think that is the better recipe for success. But it remains to be seen. Obviously, it's a game-to-game for Brazil. But from what I see so far from this Brazilian national team, they are way off it in terms of competing for the 2026 World Cup. But in the lead-up to the 2018 World Cup, there was it was sort of something similar. That Copa America in 2016, they got eliminated the group stages, but they were able to find something going forward quickly leading into the World Cup, and they staged in that World Cup, in my opinion, a world-class team that just lost to a Belgium team that took advantage of individual opportunities in that game. Can Brazil do this again? Can Brazil sort of set up a team on the fly to compete at the 2026 World Cup? We will see. We shall see. But of course, Neymar coming back will be a huge, huge part in that. No questions asked. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to Chelsea's ownership drama unfolding.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Rodrigo saying Brazil need Neymar to win the 2026 World Cup. We move on to react to Chelsea's drama unfolding. We know the sort of the craziness that's been regarding Chelsea in terms of the transfer strategy and all that. Everything in terms of the football operations. We have until recently sort of understood the sort of turmoil in terms of the ownership consortium that came in and took over for Roman Abramovich after he was sanctioned from being owner of Chelsea from the higher ups in the British hierarchy, the government or whatever happened there. That's a whole different discussion. But going back to Chelsea, Chelsea's current ownership group, it seems like with Chelsea, they're always in the headlines, where there's never a break as a Chelsea fan. In the international break, you sort of think, okay, now it's the time to breathe as a Chelsea fan. Oh, no, a day in, boom, something's going on with the ownership group. There's just Chelsea are always going to be in the headlines, which is funny or crazy, but yes, it seems like there's tensions going on between the Clear Lake investment firm, which is sort of led by Egbali and Todd Bowley, and the partnership is kind of at a breaking point. It's reported that, even though this just came out a few days ago, it's been reported that the tensions between the Clear Lake capital firm and Todd Bowley have been happening under the surface for a while. Recent reports say the breakdown in their relation. Recent reports saying the breakdown in their relationship is becoming public. The biggest story at Chelsea has been finally out in the open, as it's been reported by some major networks. And this is a little bit more than 2 years after the £2.3 billion takeover of the club. And now it seems like Clear Lake Capital and Todd Bowley's partnership are sort of heading to a divorce. The partnership was once the group came in to sort of change the way Chelsea operated, are now divided in terms of differences, in terms of transfer decision differences, in terms of strategic disagreements, in terms of disagreements over the Mauricio Pochettino. Mauricio Pochettino, it's been reported that Clear Lake Capital wanted him sacked, while Todd Bowley wanted him to wanted to keep him. And now sort of these issues, these sort of differences of opinion have created a rift that has been described as I always struggle to say this word. It's been described as irreconcilable, and Bowley and Clear Lake they're looking for ways to sort of, potentially part ways, which has to involve, someone buying each other out, either Todd Bowley buying out Clear Lake or Clear Lake buying out Bowley, which I'd have to say I don't know how Todd Bowley himself is going to be able to come up with the capital to buy out Clear Lake. That's a lot of money. We're talking about a 2.3 billion pound sort of takeover. Chelsea. So this ownership group is in a deep sort of divide over how the club has been ran. Begdad Egbali, who is sort of the face of the Clear Lake investment firm, they've been really involved recently. Especially when it comes to sort of player recruitment, and while Todd Bowley views have been micromanagement. According to reports, Todd Bowley is really frustrated with that. He thinks that Clear Lake's obsession with player trading it's been reported that a meeting took place last month when the groups in the Clear Lake Investment Group and Todd Bowley explored options. Bowley and his associates have received approaches from different investors in recent weeks trying to buy out Clear Lake, while Clear Lake also has aspirations to try to buy out Todd Bowley. There's been also other issues, not just with, sort of player management, but also the lack of progress that they've had on the new stadium, the stadium project, which has made the tensions even worse. Chelsea's leadership initially promised a stadium back in 2022, and since then they've really failed to deliver a clear plan. And now it puts Stamford Bridge's future in a sort of uncertain position, and a lot of fans are frustrated. A lot of fans are frustrated generally with this ownership group in terms of transfer strategy, in terms of letting go of players that came up to the ranks of the club, like Conor Gallagher, like the situation how they treated Trevor Chalobah, and It's, Todd Bowley, he's really sort of been the face of this Chelsea ownership group over recently. Even to me, when I come here and I try to criticize Chelsea's ownership group, I really, I start off with Todd Bowley because he's been the face. And he's been the guy out that's been talking on these sort of conferences at these, sort of rich man sort of, conferences where he's on the stage, talking about how there should be an all-star game in the Premier League, things like that. He's been the sort of face of this sort of ownership group. He's the guy that we sort of see at the stadium watching at Stamford Bridge. But from what he's saying, it seems like at least over recent times that the Clear Lake Investment Group have had more say in terms of the football operations within Chelsea Club. And obviously the handling of Mauricio Pochettino has also made the divide between the two ownership group even wider, with Bowley wanting patience and wanting to, remain with Pochettino, while with particularly when I say Clear Lake, particularly Egbali, who I repeat is the face of the Clear Lake Investment Group, was pushing for Mauricio Pochettino's exit, which eventually happened. Bowley, he did not want to release Pochettino, so obviously there was a divide amongst that. And obviously with some transfer mistake issues that Chelsea have gone through as well, with the amount of over $1.2 billion being spent on players. That's led to a lot of criticism and a lot of confusion amongst all the Chelsea fans, and the divide almost created a divide amongst Chelsea fans as well. It's clear that And it's crazy. And to be honest, it's starting to make more sense how Chelsea has been ran. It makes sense. There are issues at the top. There's a divide at the top, which is complacent in the way Chelsea has, you know, has operated in terms of in terms of footballing operations, in terms of transfer strategy, in terms of the stadium plans and all that. Just a massive issue. And this is something obviously that needs to be resolved and needs to be resolved quickly. Because this needs to be whatever happens, whatever solution that's going to be the solution to this sort of issue needs to come fast, because there's a major issue in terms of Chelsea Football Club. There needs to be a clear piece up front so they can fix the issues with Chelsea when it comes to any financial issues that could be present because of some of the mistakes that the Chelsea ownership group has made. So that Enzo Maresca has someone to report to, has someone that oversees him as well, that oversees the football club. They just need to fix the issues up top so we can see a better product on the field, and this needs to happen fast. It's a complete mess. Now, for me, this is a sort of segment that I could do a whole show on to really go in depth with everything going on. Obviously, we don't have the time to do that today. But, it's just a mess at Chelsea, and it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed really fast. Short break here coming up, though. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Before the break, we discussed Chelsea's ownership drama on 14. We move on to react to some top soccer headlines. And we start off horrible news coming out of the Norwegian camp. Horrible news for Arsenal. Martin Odegaard left the pitch in tears after being injured in their Nations League battle against Austria, in which they surprisingly won 2-1. But the 25-year-old hurt his ankle in the second half and had to be substituted. He left it in pitch, which obviously leaves him in major doubt for the North London derby at Tottenham. Arsenal already going to be without Declan Rice, who was suspended for that game, and now Martin Odegaard also being out. We have to assume those sort of ankle injuries can be really tricky. This is an injury that's more likely than not kind of take him, that's gonna make him miss more than just that game. We're talking maybe a month injury, 2 months sort of injury. Those ankle injuries are always really tricky. They start swelling and they become really hard to put any weight on, and it takes a little bit of time before you can put any weight on it and get back into sort of doing any work on it, any sort of training or anything of that sort. So obviously that's bad. When the Norwegian coach Stale Solbakken was talking to Norwegian TV, he said Martin's injury looked bad in the dressing room. I saw he was sitting with the physiotherapist around him, but he had no chance to continue, and we know it was an ankle sprain. The team doctor Ole Sand said yes, it's a sprain, and as those of you who had played football with luck, with luck it can turn out okay if the ligaments aren't torn. We will see. Maybe we use ultrasound to look at it if you are unsure. There will be an MRI tomorrow. Yeah, that's obviously a massive loss for Arsenal. The creativity he provides that midfield, being that sort of number 10, being what De Bruyne is for Manchester City, Odegaard being for Arsenal, and they've been injury ravaged now in that sort of midfield compartment. It goes back to Mikel Merino, that first training session, hurt, getting injured, being out for a month to 2 months. Declan Rice now being suspended for that Tottenham game, and now with Martin Odegaard as well. And Declan Rice, I believe he'll be missing 3 games because of the red card. I don't know what's the rule on 2 yellow cards. But yeah, that's gonna be a huge issue for Mikel Arteta to sort of deal with, going up against a Tottenham team that hasn't been able to get in the ball in the back of the net, but in terms of general play, have had a very, very good start of the season. Just in terms of general play, being able to create, being able to control possession, being able to create chances, have played some good football, just haven't been able to capitalize on that, particularly against Leicester and against Newcastle. We gotta move on to the UEFA Nations League. France were able to defeat Belgium 2-0. Keep in mind, France were coming off a disappointing loss to Italy, in which they were thoroughly outplayed at the Parc des Princes. They played this game at the Olympique Lyonnais, which is interesting why their first 2 Nations League games are at home. You kind of see it's 1 home, 1 away, 1 home, 1 away, 1 home, 1 away, but this is different. Koulibaly was able to get on the goal sheet in the 29th minute, Dembele in the 57th minute. A much more improved performance for France. They were able to sort of dominate the game, control the tempo, and they looked really, really good against Belgium, especially compared to how they looked against Italy, in which, again, they were thoroughly outplayed. Kevin De Bruyne, he came out and he was really frustrated with the loss. He was very visibly frustrated, and he always looks frustrated playing with Belgium over recent years now. And De Bruyne said, I can't say here what went wrong. I already did that to the team at halftime. I cannot repeat that in the media, but it has to be better in every way. If the standard we want to reach is the best, but we're no longer good enough to get to that level, then you have to give everything. If you don't even do that, it's over. De Bruyne said, I can accept that we're not as good as in 2018. I was the first to see that, but the other things are unacceptable. I'm not going to say what. And and he also said, we are too many at the back. If you stay with 6 at the back, there is no connection. It is what it is. It is not about transition, but about the people who do not perform their tasks. Dominic Tedesco said he understood De Bruyne's frustration. He said he's our captain and has a huge winning mentality, so he can also react emotionally. And sometimes, look, I understand the emotions of Kevin De Bruyne. He's frustrating. He's a leader. He's a captain. But sometimes too much frustration can lead to some resentment from your teammates. So it's important for De Bruyne to sort of balance that going forward. Obviously, he's accepted the fact that this is not a team that can compete with the bestest of teams, but all he wants is for the players to work at that highest level to sort of try to make up the talent gap. But again, you need to find sort of a balance within your teammates in terms of, yes, being being frustrated and getting onto them, but also, not annoying them to where there is any resentment as well. But yeah, it's clear that this Belgium team is far their best, but I still commend Kevin De Bruyne for the heart. There's still a huge heart there, and he still cares. And he could take the easy way out and just retire. Being age 33 is not something that'd be frowned upon. He could just retire and focus on the club football for the rest of his career. But obviously, there's a huge heart there, and there's a huge passion there, and a huge desire there. So I hope Kevin De Bruyne goes on to play for Belgium for another 5-6 years, whatever he has left in his career, and continues to sort of be that sort of leader for them, because the heart is there, and you can't say that for other teammates, specifically Thibaut Courtois, who's sort of essentially walking away from the national team because of a coach not giving him the captain armband. Yeah. Let's go back to the Nations League, though. France played Belgium. Spain were able to get past Switzerland on Sunday, 4-1. Dani Olmo suffered an injury in that game. That's also a blow for Barcelona. Not as big of a blow that Odegaard is for Arsenal, but with him, with the knee injury that he suffered, Hansi Flick, who needed for this Barcelona team, is to sort of ease him into the Barcelona team and get him playing more and more, so he sort of builds a rhythm and sort of builds a connection to his teammates. Now that's gonna be delayed because of this injury, but they also dodged a bullet in the fact that the medical tests are not bad. This is not no ACL or something that can be devastating sort of injury. It seems to be he didn't suffer a major injury, so the key for him now is to sort of get back to rehabbing. He's back at Barcelona already, getting to rehab so he can get back as soon as possible so he can be fit and firing for Barcelona. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful day.